Two Canucks prospects make massive waves for their development with surprise invitations to Team Canada's summer camp, and with Coach Tocchet's recent position with Team Canada, we take a look at the short-term impact of the Tocchet era. We'll be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all updates surrounding the Canucks this off-season. With that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Tocchet named assistant head coach for Team Canada. And we see here from a tweet from the Vancouver Canucks themselves that head coach Rick Tocchet was named assistant head coach for Team Canada in the 2025 NHL Four Nations Face-Off, and he was joined in assistant coaches with Bruce Cassidy, Peter DeBoer, and Misha Donskov, as well as behind John Cooper, who was named the head coach last month in June. I think it's amazing that Tocchet is going to be representing Canada with this amazing roster of coaches. And when you look at the projected roster and as well as the confirmed roster with the ones in the asterisks there, you can pause it and take a look at it. But you do see some notable names already confirmed, like Sidney Crosby, Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid, Brad Marchand, and more. And then you go into the defensemen as well, where you have Cale Makar, who is already confirmed. There are some names on there where he maybe, who knows, Tocchet could try and work his magic and try and convince these guys to come to Vancouver by the trade deadline or in the offseason. Maybe they're just talking shop and in between games. But I have a feeling it's just going to be all focused on winning this showcase. I think it's going to be great to see Tocchet represent Canada. It does suck that there is no Canucks on this team, but he's going to be playing against them for the ones representing Team USA and Team Sweden. So it's going to be a really nice tournament to watch going forward, going into next season. I think this is going to be a lot more exciting than the All-Star game would be, because you have guys who are playing for their country instead of just playing for fun and getting little incentive bonuses here and there. I think this is going to be a lot more competitive and a lot more entertaining to watch. And I, for one, can't wait to see these four nations square off. It's the four best countries in the world when it comes to hockey. That's why they were the ones chosen. You got Canada, Finland, USA, and Sweden. So there's going to be lots of great names and lots of great hockey to be watched. But the main thing with Tocchet being selected is what's going to lead us into our second topic of the day, which is the early Tocchet era impact. And we saw in a tweet here where Noah Strang tweeted out that since Rick Tocchet took over the Canucks, they've played 118 games. They have 70 wins, which is 8th in the NHL, 153 points, which is 7th, and a .648 points percentage, which is 8th in the NHL. And that's with a team that many thought could make the playoffs only in best case scenario. Well deserved for him to get the call to Team Canada, and I couldn't agree more here. I think Tocchet has been the embodiment of what the Vancouver Canucks have needed as a head coach. He's been amazing in the short time that he's been there. He won the Jack Adams last year. He took this team that many thought was going to maybe make the playoffs, and by mid-season, they were the number one seed in the West. Then they finished with the second seed in the West, as well as winning the Pacific Division, going on to the West semis with an injury-riddled team, and AHL guys having to make that jump to be that next man up when those injuries did hit, as well as the other hurdles that they had to deal with mid-season where stars weren't getting going and then they got going again. He was that coach that was able to bring the most out of his players, and you do see that with a few of the stars on this team. You see there with Quinn Hughes, where he has continued to just get better and better each year and winning the Norris Trophy. So he's going to try and go back-to-back next year and try and eclipse 100 points. That would be awesome to see for him and for Vancouver to have multiple 100-point scorers on this team. The second of which we covered him last night and the video before, but JT Miller with that 100 points, he led the Canucks in scoring last season. Tocchet really tapped a nerve with him and brought something out of him that he hadn't seen before with JT Miller, and he really came out and just fired on all cylinders the whole season and was that perfect leader that they needed. Then when you go into Brock Boeser as well, he has just continued to get better and better and better. He had that slow start with Vancouver, but they've stuck with him and rode it out through thick and thin with him and have shown that they believe in him, and Tocchet does as well, bringing him to 73 points for a career best season where he just is bringing the best out of him. And I think we're going to see that more where Boeser is coming off the injury. He's going to have that chip on his shoulder where he wants to prove naysayers wrong and he wants to just get back at it and keep scoring points. So I think if you have him back for the whole season, that's going to be great as well. Then when you look at Connor Garland, it wasn't his career best season, but it was his best season as far as goals were concerned. He did have a great season, and especially when he was paired with his line mate Dakota Joshua, who did have the best season of his career. And when you paired these guys together, they quite literally were Batman and Robin as far as anyone was concerned. They were the best line in hockey at certain points where they were just making things happen. When when they were scoring, it was either one of those, it was the other name was in there in either the goal column or the assist column when one of them was scoring. It was great to see that they were contributing not only apart but also together, especially when considering that Joshua did miss that section of time with the injury where he went from the leading NHL hitter to down into the top 10, where he did eventually finish in the top 10. But that's a guy who was putting up great production with a great line mate and was also leading the league in hits, and has a chance to do so next season, where he is just going to be a wrecking ball. Now that he's extended, they're going to have him for a long time. So Vancouver has shown that they show faith in him, and that's what they've done with a lot of these guys. They've made the investment with these guys. Brock Boeser does have a contract that is expiring coming up, but they've had faith in these guys when other teams might not have had that continuous faith, or when teams were wanting to trade for these players. Vancouver said, no, we're going to stick with these guys. We like what we have here. The team chemistry is amazing, and they didn't want to mess with a good thing. And I think Tocchet is a massive part of that. And another player who has been a bit of that investment is Nils Höglander. He has continued to pay off more and more each season. And I think with this season, with some players leaving and some holes opening up, he has a chance to really make a splash on this roster as one of those top 6 forwards, where he is going to be on a pace where he could potentially put up over 40 points next season. I think that's on the optimistic side. I think as the more stretch of a prediction would be potentially 50 to 60 points. I'm not saying that he is capable of that quite yet, but I think he does show that potential where maybe by the season after this next season, he is able to make that jump and be one of those 50-point scorers consistently year in and year out. And this has been a player that Vancouver has shown a lot of investment in and has taken a few amount of scrutiny with it, but fans have continued to like him. Coaching staff has continued to like him. Tocchet as well has come out and said multiple times how much he likes Nils Höglander. So I think it's going to be great to keep him there and to have him playing with a guy like Petey. They're both from Sweden, so I think keeping those guys together will be great as far as having overall team chemistry and chemistry with those guys, as far as being able to motivate each other and keep each other going. And another pair that was able to keep each other motivated and keep each other going is what's going to lead us into the third topic for today, and that is Sawyer, Mynio, and Anthony Romani invited to Team Canada camp. And we see here in a tweet here where Mark Masters was tweeting that I was a little shocked, and that's what Sawyer Mynio had to say about getting invited to Team Canada summer camp. He looked more than deserving after the Canada showcase in my hometown of Windsor, Ontario, where he scored and had a primary assist on Tuesday, earning a positive review from Coach Dave Cameron. And he did have a goal where he was assisted by his fellow Vancouver Canuck, Anthony Romani, where he also made the camp with him as well. And when you look at the stats here, where if you have Anthony Romani, who had a great season, you look at Sawyer Mynio, where he was coming from the WHL with the Seattle Thunderbirds. They won the championship there. He was a player who continued to get better and better and better with Seattle and made that jump to Abbotsford. He only played one game, but I think we're going to see that involvement go up next season, where Abbotsford has a lot of holes that they had to fill, and they want to make sure that he's ready for that worst case scenario if the Vancouver Canucks need an emergency player. And another player that had that growth was Anthony Romani as well. These guys made a big splash in a short amount of time to get drafted, where you look at Anthony Romani, he went from 43 to 111 points. He is a draft pick that I was very high on heading into the draft. I was wanting the Vancouver Canucks to draft him, and I was very happy that they did, because he was someone that, where Mark was very high on Jonathan Lekkerimäki, this was my Lekkerimäki, where I wanted nothing but the best for this kid. I saw the potential in him, and I saw that Vancouver would be the perfect fit for him. It's amazing to see him in there and playing with a guy like Sawyer Mynio, who is from Kamloops, BC. So having that hometown guy with a guy from North that was playing in North Bay and has that chip on his shoulder, where he was counted out the draft before. So he's like, okay, I'm going to just go put up 100 points and see if you can ignore me now. So that's what he did, and I think that's going to be great for Sawyer Mynio, where they're showing that chemistry early on with the national stage. So when that transfers over to the AHL, I think Romani's going to make that jump to the AHL a lot sooner than most of the other draft prospects. And I think Sawyer Mynio will be along with him for the ride, where they could form a very nice tandem together and be one of those dynamic duos where we could see a reincarnation of the Garland-Joshua duo or some other iconic duos in the NHL, but for the Vancouver Canucks edition. So that would be amazing to see, and it's great for their growth. I think they're going to be making a big splash on the national stage eventually when they get there, and as well in the AHL for Abbotsford, especially with a coach like Manny Malhotra at the helm. What do you guys think about these guys' growth? Do you think that they're going to be playing for Abbotsford sooner rather than later? What do you think about Tocchet being named as the assistant head coach for Team Canada at the Four Nations Showcase? Are you guys more excited for that rather than an all-star game? Would love to hear your opinions on that. It seems like when we have these tournaments, it has a very mixed opinion as far as how fans want it. But if you're a competitor, I think it's something worth loving. And speaking of something worth loving, let's get into the topic that everybody loves, and that is comment of the day. And we see here from Curtis Miller that thanks for all the offseason content. We love bringing you guys this offseason content. It's the time of the season where we get to try the fun things, get to do some things that we're not usually doing during the regular season when it's all business, it's games just going on and constant news flooding in and out. But we have like some great ideas that we do want to bring you guys. But what are some ideas of things that you guys want to see on the channel as far as fun lists, fun games that we could play? We'd love to take your guys' feedback and we work those into the show while the off season is going. That's the time for us to try all the fun stuff. We can't wait to bring all the fun stuff for you guys going into the next season. We can't wait for it to get here. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.